I had quit a corporate job and had spent more than a year studying and investigating the causes that led to the poisonous gas leak at the Union Carbide pesticide plant in Bhopal on the ill-fated night of December 2 and 3, 1984. Thousands perished and more than 100,000 citizens were critically wounded in this Holocaust. My investigation took me from ground zero to every part of the affected area and the city hospitals from December 3, 1984 onward. My initial findings based on primary sources have been published in a book form. The first edition of my book appeared in October 1985. After that, I had traveled to the United States to correlate and compare the highly advanced Union Carbide plant at Institute in West Virginia with the level of safety provided in the outdated Bhopal plant that was a second-hand, obsolete contraption brought to Bhopal from Danbury in USA only to cut costs. I also visited Switzerland in November 1985 and spent several days on exclusive research at the headquarters of World Health Organization and International Labour Organization in Geneva. My research was focused on medical aspects linked with the poisonous gas leak and industrial safety. At the WHO headquarters, I got the chance to meet Dr. Deshbandhu Bisht. He was the then Director Program Coordination and Information with the World Health Organization in India. He was India's Director General of Health Services at the time of the poisonous gas leak and was directly involved in addressing the medical emergency in Bhopal. After he had finished reading the first edition of my book, that too in one sitting, his comment was, "The book is dot on and factually correct." The second edition of my book, Bhopal Disaster, an eyewitness account, was launched by the then President of India, Gyani Zail Singh, at Rashtrapati Bhavan in August 1986. This book is listed in the US Library of Congress catalog and is also a reference volume in libraries across several international law schools. After this book had been released by the President of India, I became a full-time journalist with India's leading newspaper, The Hindu. The International Commission of Jurists, ICJ, is a non-governmental organization devoted to promoting understanding and observance of the rule of law and the legal protection of human rights throughout the world, with headquarters in Geneva. It has many national sections and also affiliated organizations. It enjoys consultative status in the United Nations Economic and Social Council, UNESCO, the Council of Europe, and the African Union. The ICJ maintains cooperative relations with various bodies of the Organization of American States. The 1984 Bhopal gas disaster involving Union Carbide provoked a marked shift in perceptions concerning the conduct of corporations in India. This led to the enactment of stricter laws, emergence of new legal principles through the judiciary, and development of enforcement mechanisms. The ICJ has underscored and brought this in public domain, citing what has been concluded by me in my book on Bhopal Disaster. Now, when I was conducting the investigation for my book on the gas disaster, two leading members of Sentinels, including its founder, Edmond Kaiser, they met me in Bhopal in October 85, and Sentinels is a Swiss charity organization. They invited me to their headquarters, and a few days later, when I met them at their headquarters at Lausanne, Edmond Kaiser offered me a sum of $2 million to organize a relief initiative for the Bhopal gas victims. He even tried desperately to convince me to drop the idea of writing a book on the disaster. When he was told how serious I was about my book and my plan to visit the United States to carry forward my research for the second edition of the book, he had said all that could wait, all that could be deferred and that I should immediately return to Bhopal and launch the relief initiative for the gas victims, because relief cannot wait. I chose to turn down his advice and went to the US. While there, I got a brochure which said that the huge amount of money that Edmond Kaiser was offering me for setting up a relief initiative for the Bhopal gas victims was actually given to Sentinels by the US multinational Union Carbide Corporation. This brochure was handed over to me by Gerald Williams. He was an attorney at law with Slap Williams and Coker. I had met him in his chamber at the Franklin Plaza in Philadelphia during the fag end of 1985. This brochure was quite an eye-opener, and before returning to India from the US, I made it a point to make a stopover and meet the Sentinel's attorney in Geneva. I met him in his office and returned the air passage I had received earlier from Sentinels at Lausanne. I took this step as I did not want to touch a single dollar linked to Union Carbide, especially since I was of the firm opinion that the US multinational company should be tried for mass homicide. During 1987-1988, I had accepted the request by Ajit Bhaumik, Secretary General, Indian Red Cross, to serve as Public Relations Officer for the Medical Relief Gas Victims Project, specially launched for more than 100,000 victims. In this capacity, I got the opportunity to play what I consider was a leading role in maintaining transparency and a robust dialogue with the media, including international television news channels. The job also involved one-on-one interaction with top American Red Cross and International Committee of the Red Cross functionaries, as well as top officials of Government of India and the state government. Now, in this position, I could help in building the image of the Red Cross project for the gas victims. And this paved the way for continuous flow of funds, including the second installment of US $5 million from the American Red Cross for the special hospitals built for the gas victims. And this became possible, especially after a CBS 60-minute episode. The most watched television news magazine in the US gave full marks to the Red Cross efforts, especially the services rendered by the Red Cross hospitals that were inaugurated by the then President of India, R. Venkataraman. This popular TV episode was based on an on-the-spot coverage by a CBS team that included the legendary award-winning American journalist Ed Bradley. Others in his team, if I could recall and place on record, were Barry Lando from Canada and Ms. Harris from the US. For me, it was a rare honor as the Indian Red Cross Secretary General. Mr. Bhaumik gave me full credit for the positive coverage of the Medical Relief Gas Victims Project in an otherwise extremely critical report by Bradley in a 60 Minutes report from 1987 on Bhopal's aftermath. In this regard, I also want to highlight how I was engaged in a prolonged discussion with the CBS team leader in Bhopal before they left for the States. When the CBS crew had finished recording interviews of the Red Cross bosses, including the state governor and chairman Madhya Pradesh Red Cross unit, besides the doctors at the medical facilities and the gas victims, and it was in the process of packing up for the day, I went up to the crew leader and, introducing myself as the public relations officer for the Medical Relief Gas Victims Project, tried seeking an appointment with him. But I could not succeed. His response was a big no. But when I told him that I had authored one of the first books on the gas disaster and that it had been released by the President of India in 1986, he was immediately favorably inclined, and I got the appointment. We met at Jahanuma Palace Hotel that evening, and it was a long session. He kept jotting notes till the early hours of that morning. The rest is history. Thanks to CBS 60 Minutes, the Medical Relief Gas Victims Project for the gas victims received the next installment of funds from the American Red Cross.